Hey guys! It's been a while. How's it going? About 10-ish months ago, before the pandemic happened, I hit 1,000 subscribers on here, on something that I barely post on, so thanks guys! I promised I would do a Q&A after that, and I just haven't gotten around to it. Here's a new start to my channel, and I'm gonna try to actually post more frequently-ish. We'll see how long that lasts. I thought we'd kick it all off with a Q&A, so yeah, I reached out to you guys on TikTok and Instagram. I got a lot of questions. I was originally going to do oh, here's me getting into my cosplay makeup as I answer these questions, but no, guys, they require a lot of thought for me to answer, so I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna talk to the camera, and that's how it's going to be. So I'm excited for you guys to get to know me a little bit better as we officially start on this new adventure. So let's get started. First question, what inspired you to cosplay, or what is the best part about it? What did inspire me to cosplay? I think I wanted to be a superhero when I was little. I grew up reading DC Comics a lot and watching Teen Titans. I really wanted to be a Robin when I was in middle school. So middle school was just me trying to figure out how to become Batman on a budget. I remember I had a friend and she was like, you can actually dress up as these characters that you like and go to events where a bunch of people do that. And I'm like, more people like to do this? People actually like to dress up as fictional characters? That's kind of how I got started. Yeah, and the best part about it for me is definitely getting to embody the character, actually looking in the mirror and being like, oh my gosh, I'm Harley Quinn, I'm Jester Lavore. Oh, there's nothing like it. You get to embody this character and act as them, and then seeing the response from other people. It's addicting. It's very fulfilling. Okay, next question. What's a cosplay you want to do but haven't yet? On the topic of DC Comics, probably Artemis Croc from Young Justice. Oh, that's a costume. I've had the materials for probably 5 years now, and I've been working on it on and off for about 5 years now, but it's still not done. I really want to finish that cosplay and finally wear it, but it still probably won't be for a while. That one and Anastasia's Grand Duchess gown from the animated movie. I have all the materials for that one too, and I've also been working on that one. I'll probably finish that one before Artemis. Also an original concept for Queen of Hearts. I've been wanting to do that for years and I haven't gotten to it yet, but I will one day. How did you get into cosplay, and what's the first fandom you were really into? Well, I kind of already answered how I got into cosplay. I wanted to be Robin. But the first fandom I was really into, surprisingly, because DC Comics, I didn't get a fandom experience from DC Comics, but my first cosplay ever was Jack Frost. The first actual fandom experience I had was at the convention where I was dressed as Jack. Disney. Jack Frost is DreamWorks. Gosh, I don't know if you guys have heard of Rise of the Brave Tangled Dragons. I had vaguely heard of it when I first went to this convention, and then a bunch of cosplayers from Brave and Tangled and How to Train Your Dragon kept coming up to me and they're like, we need to take pictures and blah blah blah, and I started just traveling with these people. It was amazing, and it felt like such a tight-knit community. That was really my first fandom experience. Next question is, how did you get started into cosplay, and how do you put your costumes together? I'm trying to think of a more creative way to answer that first part of the question, but I've kind of already answered it. How do I put my costumes together? Generally, when I see a costume that I want to create, I start off with a reference image, and I start breaking down, okay, this shirt could be like this, or oh, I have a pattern for this, I can do this, if that makes any sense. I just start at thrift stores, see what I can find that might work. Sometimes, say I'll chop up a t-shirt and turn it into a skirt, or I have a cloak right behind me that's made out of bed sheets. Unless I'm competing in the costume, I generally try to base things off of what I can find secondhand, because it's good for the environment, and it's a lot cheaper. A lot cheaper. I hope that answered that question. Sort of on that topic, how much does cosplaying cost? I would say generally, even after thrifting most of my materials, any costume will generally cost me around $100. About $100 on each costume minimum. Most of the time, a lot more than that. I would say my most expensive costume for all the materials cost me almost $1,000. And that's for a giant ball gown. That's not even finished yet, so you know, that's cool. Most difficult cosplay, or one I've wanted to do but I haven't gotten to it yet. I sort of answered that second part already, but for the most difficult costume, probably the $1,000 one that I just talked about. It was originally supposed to be like a Queen of Hearts inspired dress, and then totally flipped the switch and I ran with a totally different concept. I'm planning on hand sewing. I bought a few thousand roses and I'm gonna hand sew them all onto the bottom of the dress. I'm very excited to see how it looks. I just also do not really feel like hand sewing roses at the moment, but I'll get to it eventually. That's probably my most difficult costume so far though. Ooh, that was a lot of learning experiences at once. So, are you self-taught when it comes to sewing? Ish? Sort of. I started getting an interest in sewing in middle school. I had to take a life skills class, and for our final project, we had to sew pillows, and the requirement was 1 pillow. And I'm like, this is so much fun and so easy. So every single day in class, I would just sew like 3 or 4 more pillows because I found out I was really fast at sewing and it was something I understood. I would just like go through all these pillows, and my teacher was like, you know, you really have a knack for this. You might want to look into other things that you could do with sewing. I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. I'll look into it. From there, I'm sort of self-taught. I just kind of taught myself how to sew by buying garments at thrift stores and cutting them apart at the seams so I could kind of see how different patterns work. I'm self-taught. Yes, the short answer to your question is yes. Next up, best body paint for cosplay that doesn't transfer. Oh boy. I'm gonna have a whole video on this coming up. My personal opinion, my favorite is Graftobian's Pro Paint. 100%. I love them. Overall, if you want body paint that doesn't transfer, this was my job at one point. I will preface with this. I used to sell these and apply them to people for a living. So that's my experience behind this answer. Non-transfer, you'll probably want a water-activated paint. So Graftobian Pro Paint's a good example, as well as Mayron's Paradise Paint is also a really good one. If you have more sensitive skin, I recommend that one. I'll go more in depth on it in the video that I make later. Also, if you know Lex Made You Look, she just released body paints and I'm so excited. I would also recommend her. Not sponsored by any of these people, but I wish I was. Most water activated body paints don't really transfer upon touch unless they are made wet. Generally, depending on the color, you can scrub it with your hand lightly and you'll have no transfer. If you're worried about transfer, you can also spray them with a barrier spray. Never powder. Don't do it. People will say to do it, ignore them. Don't do it. It makes it cakey and gross and nasty, and then your face doesn't breathe as well. Always use a spray on water activated. That's from my experience, but I'll go more in depth on it later on. Favorite pizza? Thank you for the easy one. Baked potato pizza. It's very hard to find, but it's like potato slices and cheese and sour cream and chives, and it's very good. I 10 out of 10 recommend it. But also I'm from Chicago, so just deep dish. Can't go wrong with deep dish. Come to Chicago and get a deep dish pizza if you never have. Just when the world is safe again, consider doing that. Comfiest cosplay. That's hard. That's really hard. I should have thought about this. Out of the ones I can think of right now, probably Cora. Specifically the one with the sweatshirt. The wig is not the most comfortable, but that aside, just the clothing, so comfy. Sweatpants and like flat boots and a warm sweatshirt with just like long gloves. Oh, compared to so many of the other costumes, it's very comfortable. And I could almost live in it if it weren't for the wig. The wig is very uncomfortable. I don't know, out of the hundreds of costumes that I have, the one that I can think of off the top of my head right now, probably Cora. I really like this question. How do you decide which elements to keep in your cosplays when deviating from canon art? It's really whatever I feel like doing. There isn't really a rhyme or reason for it. A lot of it depends on just what I can find at a reasonable price at that point in time. I'm trying to think of a specific example. I deviate from canon art a lot. It's just based on, oh, I found this thing at a thrift store and it makes me think of insert character. I think it would look nice. It's not exactly canon, but I think it'd be cool. How many hours do you put into each cosplay, and what's the most hours you've put into one of them? I don't like working on a costume for longer than a week at a time, because then I start to get bored of it and want to start moving on to something else. So I try to keep them between like 20 to 30 hours. That's not always the case, obviously. I'm trying to think. I just finished a big project that took, this is a big gap, but like 60 to 100 hours-ish. Azura from the Arcana took me about 60 hours. Love that costume though, but now I never wear it. Jester. Jester from Critical Role. That skirt, every single flower detail is hand sewn on, and I hate hand sewing. Yeah, her whole skirt was hand sewn, her cape, the lace was all hand sewn on, all of the flowers on her shirt as well, the long sleeves. That one probably took about 70 to 80 hours. Oh, and then of course the $1,000 ball gown that I keep mentioning. That one has lace and beading all throughout the dress, and all of that definitely took me over 100 hours, and it's still not done. What's your cosplay creation process? If I had to break it down, first, reference photos, break down all the materials that I would need, make extensive lists about every single thing I would need, from different fabrics to threads to embroidery, beading, what have you. Then, you know, go get my materials, pattern everything, sew it all together, make sure it fits, make your mock-ups. This is not in order anymore. Just put it together and put it all on, and then see what needs to be fixed. Find character, make like, do thing, wear. Yes. Right off of that last question, what's your favorite part of the cosplay creation process? When everything comes together. When you have everything just cut out on the table in different sections, it can be very intimidating. So when you finally see it all come together and are able to start putting it onto a dress form, seeing it work and look cool, it's wonderful. What part of the cosplay creation process would you consider yourself most skilled at? I like to say none, because I feel like I'm still growing in each part of the process. Maybe right now what I'm most confident in is the ability to redesign, maybe. The overall conceptual stage. It's a lot of fun to do, and I really enjoy doing it, and I feel like I do a good job at it. Yeah, conceptualizing and gathering. Yeah, I like this one. Which Pokemon would you start with? Cannot start with a legendary one. Also, which Yu-Gi-Oh card do you most associate with, and why? First off, how dare you not include my children as an option? Exactly. But if I had to choose one starter Pokemon, I would definitely go with Bulbasaur. He's so cute. And which Yu-Gi-Oh card? In this house, we say Yugi no to Yu-Gi-Oh. There's a whole story behind why I do not like Yu-Gi-Oh, and it's very personal, and it has to do with like manipulative people. So yeah, if you're a close friend of mine, I'll tell you that story, because it's actually sort of funny. If you want to hear it, just DM me. I hate this question in the best way. What is your favorite memory from any convention you have been to? So many good memories. Like, cons are amazing. Can I name a few? I think of all the times that I got to chill with some celebrities. I used to work press at conventions, so I got to hang out in the back rooms. I don't know what you would want to call them. I've been able to hang out with John Wesley Shipp. We just spent an entire small convention together, Rocky Mountain Con in Colorado. Probably my favorite overall con experience I've ever had. Chilling with him was so much fun. I got to compete as Cora for the first time and won Judge's Choice. Just that convention overall, super cool. Another time I worked press, I was able to hang out with Matt and Marisha. I had no idea who they were, but I had a friend who was obsessed with Matt because of Overwatch. I was hanging in the back and I was introduced to them. Like, oh, I think Marisha Ray. I'm like, oh, hi, very nice to meet you. I had told my friend later, like, oh yeah, I was just in the back. I got to escort them to their meet and greet. And she's like, what? I'm like, oh, they were really chill people. They were really nice. Like, you got to meet Matt and Marisha? I'm like, yeah. What are they from? And now I'm like, oh, naive little me. Oh no. And then just like Katsucon. Katsucon is one of my favorite convention memories. I could tell so many stories. I could just have a ask me stuff about conventions whole video. Might do that one day, we'll see. Sort of off of that, what do you miss more? Cons or my previous job that I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about? Probably cons, but it's actually really hard because I do really miss my job and it felt a lot like being at a con 24/7. Thank you, Jacob, for asking this. What's your favorite role you've played and why? And then I asked him to specify theater or D&D, and he said both. So, D&D is slightly easier. I love playing bards so much. In theater, outside of the role that I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about, I was dance captain in a show called Nice Work If You Can Get It. Wonderful musical. 10 out of 10 recommend if you like 1920s, Prohibition era sort of things. It's all music by Gershwin. It's an amazing show. But I was dance captain, so I was nicknamed Head of the Strippers. Watch the show, you'll know why. It was a wonderful role. It was a wonderful cast to work with. The directors were amazing. So probably that one, but Duloc Dancer makes a close second. I get this question so often and I still don't know how to answer it. Who is my favorite character from Vox Machina and the Mighty Nine? This is going to be the longest answer. I'll try to cut it down as much as I can, but I need to tell full stories for this one. To start off with the Mighty Nine, I got into Critical Role in part because of Jester, and the other part is because of Scanlan, but I'll get there in a second. Jester's the one who made me continue watching Critical Role, so my immediate first answer is Jester. But then I'm like, oh, but Bo is my comfort cosplay. I feel so good as Bo. I have an eyebrow slit because of Beauregard Lionette. So, I'm like, Bo. But then Yasha. Yasha's amazing. And her backstory, but then speaking of backstories, freaking Caleb Widowgast. I commissioned Fifi Tails, follower, please, to make me a custom Caleb body pillow. That's how much I love Caleb. So, Caleb. And then, not Beth. The backstory is immaculate. I love it. And just, she's so funny. I love her. And then like Molly, and you have to talk about Molly because Molly, I love Molly. And then Caduceus. Caduceus is the tea uncle that we all deserve. And he is marvelous and wonderful and ace, and I love him. and I'm leaving out my big green guy. Ford. Ford is sort of a recent obsession of mine. I love Ford. I love them all. Now for Vox Machina. I originally got into D&D because of Scanlan, because when I first started playing D&D, I started playing as a bard, and still my favorite class. But I had asked my party, I don't really know what I'm doing, I want to get better, I want to learn how to actually play a bard, and one of the guys was like, hey, you should really watch this show called Critical Role. There's this one character in their first campaign named Scanlan. You need to watch him because he is an amazing bard. I'm like, okay, sure, I'll check it out, I guess. I just started watching the first episode, wasn't really getting into it, it was a little slow for me at the time, so I started watching highlights of Scanlan. Then, what's my mother's name happened? Oh, I fell in love. So, Scanlan, but also like, right off the bat, the characters I immediately think of are the twins. You cannot choose one twin over the other. I'm sorry, you can't. So, the twins. Then I'm like, oh, but Pike. I love Pike. I love Ashley Johnson. But like, Pike's relationship with Grog and Grog. I'm a simp for Travis Willingham, and I will fully admit it. So Grog, and then I'm like, oh, but Kiki. Like, every character has flaws, and you guys can come after me, but oh, she has some moments. I love her. I love Marisha Ray. I'm a simp for Marisha Ray too. I will share, I'm gonna get hate for this, I'm not a big fan of Percy, but I still love him. If I were to have my favorites from Vox Machina and the Mighty Nine, it's like every character, Percy, slightly. I don't know, I don't have a connection with Percy. I can't really quite find one. But I still love him, he's still really cool in the scene with Anna Ripley, and you know what I'm talking about. I cried a lot. So, does that answer your question? I hope so. I just realized I never talked about Terry and Darrington. I was not a big fan of Terry in Vox Machina, but the Darrington Brigade one-shot is my favorite session of D&D that I've ever witnessed in my entire life. I love Terry too. A lot. Okay. Is there a character from Critical Role, PC, NPC, or guest that you don't want to cosplay? And this is because I've cosplayed like everyone. Yeah, if you don't follow me on Instagram or TikTok, I have cosplayed every single PC from Vox Machina and the Mighty Nine, and almost the Darrington Brigade. I've cosplayed multiple NPCs as well. For characters that I will not cosplay though, Essek. I will not cosplay Essek, unless he has like a big moment where I actually start to like him, but I do not like Essek. I do not want to cosplay him. I'm gonna get a lot of hate for that, but I'm sorry. Also, Keg. Like, I like Keg, I just don't particularly want to cosplay her. I get asked to cosplay her a lot, and I'm like, eh. Unless she comes back and, wait, spoiler for up to episode 116? Unless she comes back and kills Lucian, however you say it, New Molly. If she kills him, then I will cosplay Keg. I surprisingly got this question a lot, so I feel the need to address it. How are you so beautiful? I don't know, I guess I'm just utilizing the gifts God gave me. Last question, which I also got this a lot. Any advice for new or aspiring cosplayers? Fail. Don't be afraid of failure, because that's going to be your greatest teacher. You can't be afraid for things to go wrong. When you're creating cosplay, when you're creating content, that's the best way to learn, in my opinion. Like, sometimes you won't have a pattern that works. Sometimes you'll get holes in your garments while sewing them. Sometimes your lighting might not work when you're taking photos or videos or what have you. But you're gonna learn from that, and then it's gonna be better, and you're gonna create some amazing stuff. So everyone starts somewhere. You're not gonna be perfect right off the bat, and you're always gonna have room to grow. So yeah, don't be afraid of failure. That's my biggest advice that I have for you. With that, I hope that you try cosplaying and don't be afraid of it, because it's a lot of fun and it's very rewarding. Okie dokie, well that was everything. So thank you guys for sticking with me this entire video. Yeah, let me know what sort of content you would like to see as I try to recreate my YouTube channel and try to actually start posting. Leave it in the comments. Should I do like the normal YouTuber thing? Like, be sure to like and subscribe if you want to keep seeing more from me. Truly, thank you guys for watching this video all the way through and for getting to know me a little bit better. So I can't wait to see you guys in the next one.